The cards fell at midnight, and with them, Lady Isabella Montoya's entire future. The gaming room at Boodle's reeked of cigar smoke and desperation. Isabella stood in the doorway, watching her father stake their last remaining asset on a single hand of Victorian. Not their townhouse already lost. Not Montoya House gone before she'd received the summons. No. Baron Richard Montoya had just laid a contract on the green baize table, written in his own shaking hand. One hand. My daughter's hand in marriage. Against the return of Montoya House and all debts forgiven. Across the table, a man laughed. Low, dark, without humor. Your daughter. You'd wager your own childlike property? The voice was cultured, cold, exhausted. Isabella should leave. Should flee into London's rain-soaked streets. But she'd already seen the alternative. Debtor's prison. Her sisters Lucia and Inés turned out onto the streets. Her grandmother Dona Catalina forced to beg from Spanish relatives who'd cut ties long ago. Beyond the smoke, she glimpsed the man who'd been destroying her father for 12 hours. The Duke of Ravenscroft. Dark hair, sharp features, storm-gray eyes utterly empty of hope. Perhaps 30, looking like a man with nothing left to lose. She's educated, her father babbled. Speaks 4 languages. Her mother was Dona Elena Montoya. She'll make an excellent duchess. The ton can go to hell. As can you, Montoya. The Duke pushed back from the table. I don't want your daughter. Keep your estate. Wait. The word tore from Isabella's throat. Every head turned. She stepped into the lamplight. 23 years old, too tall, too dark, too Spanish for English beauty. But striking, with her grandmother's fierce eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Absolutely furious. If you're going to decide my future, at least look at me while you do it. The Duke's eyes met hers. Something flickered: surprise, recognition. Lady Isabella. You shouldn't be here. Yet here I am. She crossed to the table and read the contract. £47,000 in debts. Marriage to His Grace, Sebastian Ravenscroft, Duke of Ravenscroft. Within 1 month. £47,000. That's what I'm worth, apparently. Her father made a wounded sound. She ignored him. Your Grace, if you win, what exactly would my life entail? You'd be a duchess. You'd live at Ravenscroft Hall in Yorkshire, as far from London as possible. You'd bear the whispers about being won in a card game. And you'd be married to a man widely considered reckless, dangerous, and half-mad. All true. I'm not a good man, Lady Isabella. I drink too much, gamble compulsively, wake screaming from nightmares. I'm as broken as they come. And yet you were going to refuse this arrangement. Because I don't believe in owning people. The words hung in smoky air. Isabella looked at her father, crumpled and pathetic. At the Duke, waiting with hope or dread. And made her choice. One hand. You and my father. If you win, I'll marry you. If he wins, debt's forgiven and we walk away. Isabella. Her father lurched forward. You can't. Since you were willing to wager me without consent, the least I can do is participate in my own sale. She turned to the Duke, chin lifted. But understand this, Your Grace. If you win, you're not getting a grateful, biddable wife. You're getting me. Angry, resentful, and determined to make you regret every moment. For the first time that night, the Duke smiled. Lady Isabella, I look forward to it. Deal the cards. If you're holding your breath, drop a comment. Subscribe if you believe some choices take more courage than any battle. 2 cards to her father. 2 to the Duke. Her father's hands shook. Hit me. Another card. His face went gray. Again. 23. Bust. He wept openly. The Duke finally looked at his cards. Turned them over slowly. 21. Exactly. I'm sorry. Truly. Isabella felt the world tilt. But she didn't fall. Well then, congratulations, Your Grace. You've won yourself a wife. The Duke stood. I'll call on you tomorrow. Don't bother. I'll come to you. Ravenscroft House, Grosvenor Square. 10 o'clock. As you wish. At the door, she paused. 1 month, Your Grace. Make it count. It's the last freedom either of us will have. Then she walked into the rain, leaving behind her old life. He might have won the hand. But she would win the war. Isabella arrived at Ravenscroft House at precisely 10 o'clock. Alone. Scandalous. The butler, Mr. Holloway, tried to turn her away. I'm not a caller. I'm his future wife. She pushed past into the entrance hall, black and white marble, sweeping staircase, portraits of disappointed ancestors. She found Sebastian in his study. He looked like he'd been dragged behind a carriage, dark circles, stubble, clothes wrinkled from the night before. Papers everywhere showing debts and failing estates. Not a predator. A man falling apart. Lady Isabella. You're punctual. You expected me to hide and wait for you to arrange my life. Most women would. I'm not most women. No. You're not. Sit. He poured whiskey. Downed it. 10 in the morning. If we're to do this, we should establish terms. Agreed. You have demands? Several. First, separate bedrooms. Always. I won't share your bed unless we both choose it freely. He nodded, writing. Agreed. Next. Second, financial independence. My own allowance. £500 quarterly? More than generous. Acceptable. Third, my sisters visit freely. And you'll sponsor them for the season. His pen paused. That's asking a lot. It's the price for a wife you won at cards. If you want me docile, you should have married someone else. A smile ghosted his lips. Point taken. Your sisters are welcome. What else? I keep my books. All of them. Including Spanish texts considered inappropriate. Done. My turn for demands. First, you maintain appearances in public. We present a united front. As long as you treat me with respect publicly. Second, you manage the household. Ravenscroft Hall needs a duchess. I've never managed an estate that size. Mrs. Pembroke will teach you. And third? An heir. Eventually. I won't force it immediately, but at some point this marriage must produce a son. The clinical way he said it made her stomach turn. But it was reality. Eventually. When we're both ready. Agreed. They signed. A business arrangement, not a marriage. As she left, he stopped her. Thank you. For not making this harder. One more thing, Your Grace. The gambling. The drinking. The self-destruction. Whatever you're running from, it stops. Or I walk away. I won't tie myself to a man determined to drink himself to death. He stared at her. Then, slowly, nodded. We understand each other. If you've ever had to demand what you deserved, leave a heart. Subscribe if you believe strength looks different on everyone. The wedding took place on a grey March morning at St. George's. Isabella wore ice blue silk and Sebastian's mother's pearls. She looked like a duchess. Felt like a ghost. The chapel held 6 people. Her sisters crying. Her father unable to meet her eyes. Donna Catalina in black, who'd crossed from Spain to attend despite disapproving entirely. On the groom's side, Captain Edward Ravenscroft, golden where Sebastian was dark. Sebastian's voice cracked on his vows. His hands shook sliding the ring on. The sapphire caught light, heavy, and foreign. The kiss was brief. A stamp, not tenderness. At the breakfast, Edward pulled her aside. Before the war, he was different. He laughed. He had hope. Edward's voice was urgent. What you see now, that's what war did to him. I'm not here to save him. Maybe you'll want to anyway. Maybe you're exactly what he needs to remember how to live. The journey to Yorkshire took 8 hours in silence. Finally, will you tell me about Ravenscroft Hall? Sebastian stared out the window. It's a fortress. Medieval. Built to keep enemies out. Now it just keeps me in. It sounds lonely. His eyes met hers, gray and empty and aching. It's the loneliest place in the world. For just a moment, she saw him. Not the Duke. Just a man drowning. Then the walls came back. They arrived at midnight. Ravenscroft Hall rose from the moorland like a nightmare, stone and shadow and torches burning. I'd married a stranger and come to the end of the world. And I didn't know if either of us would survive. Mrs. Pembroke showed Isabella to her chambers. The Duke's rooms are in the West Wing. You'll have complete privacy. Translation: he doesn't want you near him. Days passed. Sebastian spoke only at dinner, one-word answers, never meeting her eyes. One night at 2 a.m., Isabella found him in the estate office, drunk, surrounded by papers. The mines are failing. 200 families. If I close them, his voice broke. I'm destroying lives. Just like everything else I touch. Let me help. You can't help. I can read engineering reports. My uncle was an engineer. If you could find Spanish or French technical journals, maybe there's something we're missing. He looked at her like she was speaking a forgotten language. Hope. Possibility. You do that? I'm the Duchess of Ravenscroft. Those families are my responsibility too. They worked until dawn. Side by side. The first time he'd let anyone close in years. As sunrise broke, thank you for seeing me as something other than broken. You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. Something shifted in his eyes. The first fragile shoot of trust. Next morning, a letter arrived. Sebastian's face went white. Lady Seraphina Kingsley. My former fiancée. She's coming here. The way he said her name like swallowing glass. If you've ever had to prove your worth to someone determined not to see it, drop a comment. Subscribe if you know partnership is earned, not given. Mrs. Pembroke explained while folding linens. Lady Seraphina was his whole world. They were to marry after Waterloo. But he came back changed. Nightmares. Drinking. She tried for 3 months, then broke the engagement at a ball. Told him he was damaged beyond repair in front of everyone. Isabella felt rage like fire. She abandoned him when he needed her most. And he's believed her ever since. That he's too broken to be loved. Seraphina arrived like royalty, beautiful, cold, perfect. At dinner, she smiled poison. The hall looked so rustic. Not at all how it was when Sebastian and I were planning our future. Sebastian flinched. Said nothing. Your Grace, do you remember hosting the Prince Regent? Such elegance. Seraphina undermined Isabella at every turn. Sebastian barely responded, clearly affected. That night, screaming woke Isabella. Not human screaming, the sound of an animal caught in a trap, raw and primal and terrified. She ran barefoot through cold corridors, following the sound to Sebastian's chambers. She found him tangled in sheets soaked with sweat, his body thrashing violently against invisible enemies. His face was contorted in agony, tears streaming down his cheeks even as he slept. The smell of fear, sharp and acrid, filled the room. No, please, I can't save them. His voice was hoarse, breaking on every word. There's so much blood, God, there's so much blood, I can't. The boy, he's just a boy, please don't die, please. His hands clawed at the sheets as if trying to dig through them, fingernails leaving marks in the fabric. His whole body convulsed with each sob that tore from his throat, not the quiet tears of grief but the violent, gut-wrenching sobs of someone watching the world end and being powerless to stop it. Isabella approached carefully, her own heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. She'd read about soldiers with nervous exhaustion, how they could strike out without meaning to, trapped between nightmare and reality. Sebastian. Her voice was steady despite her shaking hands. You're at Ravenscroft Hall. In Yorkshire. It's 1821. The war ended 6 years ago. You're safe. He didn't respond, still caught in whatever hell his mind had dragged him back to. She tried again, louder, more insistent. Your Grace. Sebastian. Wake up. You're safe. The war is over. His eyes snapped open, wild, unfocused, pupils blown so wide his eyes looked black instead of gray. For a terrifying moment, he didn't recognize her. His hand shot out, catching her wrist in a grip so tight she felt bones grind together. The strength in that grip was shocking, the strength of desperation, of a man fighting for his life. But Isabella didn't flinch. Didn't pull away. Kept her voice steady, her gaze locked on his. You're at Ravenscroft. It's 1821. The war is over. I'm Isabella. Your wife. You're safe now. Gradually, agonizingly slowly, awareness seeped back into his eyes. The wild terror faded, replaced by recognition, then horror as he realized he was gripping her wrist hard enough to bruise. He released her instantly, scrambling backward against the headboard, pressing himself into the corner as if trying to disappear into the wall. His breathing was ragged, his entire body shaking so violently the bed frame rattled against the floor. "Isabella, God, I didn't mean, did I hurt you?" His voice was wrecked, barely recognizable. "No. I'm fine. You shouldn't be here." I could have. He couldn't finish the sentence, his face crumpling as the weight of what he'd almost done crashed over him. "But you didn't." She sat on the edge of the bed, moving slowly, deliberately, giving him time to tell her to leave if he needed space. He didn't tell her to leave. "Tell me what you saw," she said quietly. "Sometimes talking helps." "It doesn't help." "Nothing helps." His laugh was bitter, broken. "It's been 6 years, and I still see them. Every night. The men I couldn't save." His voice dropped to barely a whisper, so quiet she had to lean closer to hear. "There was a boy. Couldn't have been more than 16. Lied about his age to enlist, probably thought it would be glorious, thought he'd be a hero." Tears were streaming down Sebastian's face now, unchecked. He didn't seem to notice or care. "He died in my arms." Called for his mother as the light went out of his eyes. "And I couldn't do anything. Couldn't save him. Couldn't even give him comfort because I was too busy trying not to die myself." His whole body shook with the force of sobs he could no longer contain. And the sound. God, the sound of the cannons, the screaming, the smell of blood and smoke and death. I can't make it stop." His voice broke completely on the last word, shattering into pieces. And Isabella, who'd promised herself she wouldn't get emotionally involved, who'd sworn she was in this marriage for survival not salvation, did something she couldn't explain. She opened her arms. For a moment, Sebastian just stared at her. As if he couldn't quite believe what she was offering. As if human touch without judgment or pity was something he'd forgotten existed. Then, with a sound like something fundamental breaking inside him, he collapsed against her. She held him while he shook. Didn't speak, didn't make promises she couldn't keep. Just provided solid, warm, human comfort, a reminder that he wasn't alone in the darkness, that someone saw him at his worst and chose to stay anyway. His tears soaked through her nightgown. His hands gripped her arms, not painfully now but desperately, as if she were the only thing keeping him from falling into an abyss. After a long time, his breathing steadied. The violent tremors stopped. He remained against her shoulder, exhausted, wrung out. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her shoulder. "You shouldn't have to see me like this. Everyone breaks sometimes, Sebastian. Even dukes. Serafina couldn't handle it. She tried, but I'm not Serafina." He pulled back enough to look at her, and there was something in his eyes, gratitude and wonder, and the first fragile shoots of something that might eventually become trust. "No," he said quietly. "You're not." Morning light found them still there. Serafina stood in the doorway, watching. How cozy. Within a week, poison reached London. Letters arrived, panicked. The rumors, the Duke is violently insane. His wife restrains him physically. It's only a matter of time before tragedy. Her sisters arrived, terrified. They're saying he's dangerous. That you're not safe. He's not dangerous. He's haunted. Sebastian overheard. Later, in the library. You defended me. Why? Because the truth matters. What am I, then? You're a man who's trying. Who's fighting to heal. Who keeps choosing to survive even when it hurts. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. His eyes filled. Serafina told me I was ruined. My mother said I brought shame. Everyone looked at me like I was broken, something to hide. Then they were all wrong. He showed her his library. I've kept every letter you sent your sisters. Made sure they arrived safely. You married me to protect them. I wanted to help. Isabella's throat closed. This small, quiet care. That night, dinner by choice. Real conversation. Laughter. As she left, "Good night, Sebastian." He caught her hand. Held it. "Good night, Isabella." First time using each other's names. First time touching without flinching. If someone ever saw the real you and chose you anyway, drop a comment. Subscribe if you believe love isn't perfection, it's bravery. Weeks passed. They worked together, laughed together, slowly lowered their walls. One evening, storm raging, trapped in the library. Why did you gamble everything away that night? Long silence. Then, because I wanted to die. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sebastian stared at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow, distant, like he was recounting someone else's story. After Waterloo, after Serafina, I spent 2 years looking for the courage. I'd stand at the window of my chambers with a loaded pistol in my hand, trying to make myself pull the trigger. But I couldn't. Not because I was brave enough to live, but because I was too much of a coward to die. Isabella felt tears burning her eyes but refused to let them fall. He needed her steady, not weeping. So I found other ways. Slower ways. I'd ride my horse too fast across dangerous ground, hoping for a fall that would look like an accident. I'd drink until I couldn't remember my own name, hoping my heart would just stop. And I gambled. Recklessly. Desperately. Hoping someone would challenge me to a duel, hoping I'd lose everything and have a reason to finally do it. His hands were shaking now, gripping the edge of the desk until his knuckles went white. Every morning I woke up was a disappointment. Every night I survived was a failure. For 2 years, I was a ghost walking through my own life, waiting for the courage to end it or for fate to do it for me. He finally looked up, meeting her eyes, and the naked pain in his face nearly broke her. "And then your father put you on that table at Boodle's." His voice changed, then softened, filled with something like wonder. "And you walked in. Furious and brave and so alive. Your eyes were blazing. You looked at me, not through me, not around me, but at me. Like I was still a person who could make choices that mattered. Like I was still human enough to be held accountable for my actions." A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "You looked at me like I was still capable of decency. Of honor. Of making the right choice even when everything in me wanted to take the wrong one. And for the first time in 2 years, the first time since I watched that boy die in my arms, I felt something other than numbness or pain. What did you feel? Curious. I felt curious about what would happen next. About who you were and why you were brave enough to walk into that room. About whether someone that fierce could possibly survive being married to someone as broken as me. He laughed, but it wasn't bitter this time, just sad. I wanted to live long enough to find out. Just long enough to see what happened. That's all. Just one more day. And now? Now it's been hundreds of days. And every single one of them, I've woken up and thought, just one more. Just one more day with her. Just one more morning watching her drink tea in the library. Just one more night knowing she's sleeping down the hall. Just one more. His voice broke completely. You saved my life, Isabella. Not by loving me or fixing me or any of that romantic nonsense. But by giving me a reason to want just one more day. Isabella couldn't breathe around the pain in her chest. Sebastian. You're not lost. You never were. I was. But maybe I'm being found. With you. Inches apart. He touched her face, reverent. Almost kissed. Thunder cracked. Moment shattered. But everything had changed. Serafina's engagement party in London. They had to attend. Isabella's father appeared, sober. I've earned back the money. I can repay him. Free you. Sebastian overheard. That night, take his offer. Leave. You deserve better than being trapped with me. What if I don't want to leave? You were one at cards. I was. And then I chose to stay. Every day since, I've chosen you. That's what you don't understand. When did this stop being obligation? Isabella took a breath, steadying herself for the most terrifying admission she'd ever made. Do you remember that first night? When you had the nightmare and I held you while you cried? He nodded, not trusting his voice. That morning, after Serafina saw us, I realized something. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't ashamed of being seen with you at your most vulnerable. I was furious that she dared judge you, that she looked at your pain like it was something shameful instead of something sacred. She stepped closer, her voice shaking but determined. And then you showed me those letters. My sister's letters that you'd kept safe, that you'd made sure reached them. You didn't have to do that. You didn't owe me that kindness. But you did it anyway because you knew I married you to protect them, and you wanted to help me protect the people I loved. Tears were streaming down her face now. That's when I realized. This wasn't obligation anymore. This was choice. Every morning I woke up and didn't run. Every night I sought you out instead of avoiding you. Every time I defended you or worked beside you or laughed with you, those were choices. My choices. Isabella. I'm not finished. Her voice was fierce now, urgent. You want to know when I fell in love with you? It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 tiny moments. It was watching you try so hard to be better even when you didn't believe you could be. It was seeing you treat your staff with respect even when you were drowning in your own pain. It was the way you never once demanded I fulfill those contract terms we signed, never once treated me like property even though technically that's what I was. She took his face in both hands, forcing him to look at her, to see the truth blazing in her eyes. You think you're broken. You think you're not worthy of love. But Sebastian, you've shown me more respect, more kindness, more genuine care in 3 months than most women get from husbands they chose freely. You've never lied to me. Never pretended to be something you're not. Never asked me to be less than I am. Her voice dropped to a whisper, intimate and devastating. I fell in love with you. Not despite your flaws. Not ignoring your damage. But because of who you are, the man who refused to own me even when the law said you could. The man who saw my worth before I fully saw it myself. The man who's fighting every single day to be better than his darkest moments. You love me? Desperately. Completely. Even though it's terrifying. I don't deserve. Stop deciding what you deserve. I'm offering. Accept it. He kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. I love you. God, I love you so much it hurts. Then let me stay. Stay. Always. If you've ever chosen love when it was terrifying, you know this. Drop a heart. Subscribe if you believe the best love stories involve impossible choices. Months later, society had shifted. The minds they'd saved became profitable. Isabella's Spanish translations worked. Word spread of the clever Duchess who understands engineering. Sebastian delivered a passionate parliamentary speech about caring for soldiers with trauma. Spoke of his wife who saw him at his worst and chose to stay. The narrative changed, not a mad duke, but a wounded soldier and the woman who helped him heal. Donna Catalina arrived from Spain, dressed like royalty. My granddaughter married for love. Something most of you wouldn't recognize. She chose a brave man over a safe one. Then Captain Edward ended his engagement to Serafina publicly. He'd found letters proving she'd been manipulating him, spreading lies for revenge. Within a week, Serafina fled London in disgrace. At Lord Ashworth's ball, people approached with genuine warmth. Whispers were kind now. Donna Catalina found Isabella. I came to apologize. You didn't need rescuing. You saved yourself. Your mother would be so proud. Isabella broke. I miss her every day. I know, Nina. But she's here. In your courage. In how you love completely despite the risk. As they left London, Sebastian pulled Isabella close. What are you thinking? About that night at Boodle's. The impossible odds. And how the worst moment became the beginning of the best one. 2 years later. Isabella sat in the library, 3-month-old Elena sleeping in her arms. Sebastian entered, windblown from writing. She's perfect. She is. He handed her a ledger. The fortune of Ravenscroft Hall. A record of recovery. The estate once drowning now thrived. Mines profitable. 300 families employed. We did this. Together. You saved me. We saved each other. They traveled to London. To Boodle's. To that gaming room. Sebastian set down cards at that exact table. 2 years ago, I took away your choice. So I'm giving you one now. His hand shook as he pulled out legal documents, the papers rustling in the silence of the empty gaming room. The same room where their story had begun in desperation and pain. One hand. If I win, you stay married to me. Forever. No doubts, no questions. If you win. He spread the documents on the green baize table, his voice breaking. £10,000 a year for life. Complete financial independence. Custody of Elena. Ravenscroft Hall deeded to you outright. The London house. Everything I can legally give you, given freely. You'd be the wealthiest independent woman in England. You'd never need anyone. Especially not me. Isabella stared at the papers, at the fortune he was offering her. Freedom. Security. Everything she'd lost when her father had wagered her away. You'd give me everything. You already have my heart. My soul. Every moment of joy I've felt in the last 2 years. This, he gestured to the documents, this is just paper and property. You deserve the choice I took from you. You deserve to choose freely whether you want this life, this marriage, this broken man who loves you more than his own existence. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. 2 years ago, you didn't have a choice. Your father made it for you. I accepted it for selfish reasons because I wanted to survive one more day, because you looked at me like I was human. But you deserved better than that. You deserved to choose. He picked up the deck of cards with shaking hands. So I'm giving you that choice now. Your choice. Your future. Yours. Isabella looked at the cards. At the documents promising her freedom and fortune. At this man who'd given her everything and was now offering to give her even more, offering to give her back herself. At Sebastian, who'd been broken and was now healing. Who'd wanted to die and had learned to want to live. Who'd won her at cards and then spent 2 years proving he was worthy of keeping her. Her hands were steady as she picked up the cards. Deal. Sebastian dealt, his hands trembling so badly he nearly dropped the cards twice. His breathing was shallow, his face pale. Everything hung on this moment. Everything. 2 cards to Isabella. 2 to himself. She looked at her cards. Queen and 8. 18. She could hit and hope for a 3 or less. Could risk it. Or she could stand and hope he went over. She met his eyes across the table and saw everything written there: love and fear and desperate hope and the acceptance that whatever happened next, he'd given her the choice. Stand, she said quietly. Sebastian looked at his own cards. His face was carefully neutral, but she could see his pulse hammering in his throat. 15, he said quietly. I have 15. He'd need a 6 or less to stay under 21. Anything higher and he'd bust. His hand hovered over the deck. Sebastian. Her voice was soft but clear. Before you draw, you should know something. What? I'm not taking the money. No matter what those cards say, I'm not leaving you. His hand stilled. Isabella. You're giving me a choice. And I'm making it. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this life we've built together. The cards are just theater. This, she gestured between them, this was decided the moment you offered me the choice. Because you offering means you've finally learned what I've known for months. What? That you're worth choosing. That you're worth fighting for. That you're worth loving. Not because you're perfect or healed or without scars. But because you're you. Brave enough to offer me freedom even though it might destroy you. Honest enough to give me the choice even though you're terrified of the answer. Tears were streaming down Sebastian's face now. Draw the card, she said softly. Let's see what fate has to say about us. Sebastian drew. An 8. 23. Bust. Isabella had won. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across that green baize table, the same table where everything had begun. Then Sebastian started laughing, a sound of pure relief and joy and disbelief. You won. You actually won. I know. You could take everything. Freedom, fortune, all of it. I could. Will you? Isabella stood and walked around the table. She picked up the legal documents, all that freedom, all that fortune, all that independence, and slowly, deliberately, tore them in half. Then in half again. And again. Until they were nothing but pieces of paper scattered across the table like confetti. No. Because I already have everything I want. You. Elena. Our life. That's my fortune. Sebastian pulled her into his arms, shaking with relief and love and gratitude. I don't deserve you. You're stuck with me anyway. Forever. Forever. He kissed her where their story began, now rewritten in love. Then he pulled out a velvet box. Inside, a sapphire ring surrounded by diamonds. It was my mother's. Passed down through Ravenscroft duchesses. You've earned it. He slid it onto her finger. Thank you for choosing me. For turning the worst hand into something beautiful. 10 years later. The library at Ravenscroft. For children gathered at Isabella's feet. Tell us the story, Mama. About the card game. Sebastian leaned in the doorway, silver in his hair, listening. She told them. All of it. The desperation. The wager. The choice. So Papa won you at cards? Little Edward asked. He did. But that's not romantic. It wasn't, Sebastian said. But your mother took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into the best thing that ever happened to me. Because you chose each other, Elena said. Exactly. That night, alone. We did well, didn't we? We did perfectly. Sebastian pulled her close. The Duke who won his Duchess at cards. And the woman who won his heart. Best hand I ever played. Terrible odds, though. Worth every risk. Every single one. Two people who'd met in the worst circumstances. Who'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. Who'd proven that love could defy any odds. The gambling Duke had wagered his estate and won a baron's daughter. But Isabella had gambled her heart and won a duke's soul. And that was the greatest fortune either could have asked for. If this story broke your heart and put it back together, if you cried, if you believed in impossible love, do 3 things. Hit that like button. Tell me this moved you. Subscribe. We tell stories of broken people becoming whole, of love defying every odd, of courage in impossible circumstances. Share this with someone who needs to believe that the worst moments can become the most beautiful beginnings. Comment, would you have walked into that room? Would you have stayed when you could have left? Another unforgettable romance waits at the end of this video. Click and discover where love takes you next. Remember, sometimes the worst hands become the greatest fortunes. Sometimes broken people build the most beautiful lives. And sometimes, love is worth every impossible risk. Thank you for believing. Thank you for choosing love.